There's horror, there's comedy,
We
grief.
had to
Grief
have
is
just one. It was what would you
no,
choose as one, Harrison?
I thought
Listen
the
to the
question was
question.
list as many genres as you think the show is.
It is very supernatural. I think I think it gets darker than you may think it will. It certainly surprised me. Some of the journeys that we go on and the monsters that we face. And I think potentially the most scary thing is that these monsters, these villains, aren't your typical bogeyman underneath the bed. They look like very real people, and they have been driven to this point for very valid reasons, which is kind of terrifying when you think that a human has that kind of capacity in them to go to that place. So I think that is quite scary. But then also we have a real element of VFX and prosthetics, which was created by Lucy Civic, who is just an absolute genius. And the things that she created to have in front of us, like physically in front of us, people with their eyes gouged out or with their face flayed, was really I had quite a visceral reaction to that. And I think on screen even more so.
I don't want this.
I thought it was really exciting because, the Sherlock Holmes world is something that everyone knows so well. So to bring that to it, I thought it was a really fresh and exciting twist. And I think people should expect to be shocked and a little bit scared and like permanently on the edge of the seat, probably watching the whole thing because you never know what's going to happen next, which I love.
Yeah, no, I think it's an amazing thing because the show's also very funny. There's quite a lot of comedy aspects to it, and there's quite a lot of laughs. And I can imagine people sort of sitting down laughing, oh, this is, just a good-hearted fun. And then you realize something much more sinister and a lot darker is waiting just around the corner. And to have that sort of balance of both of those sides was really, really good fun. And as Darci said, it's a Sherlock story that's a lot darker than what we've seen before. And I think it's going to really surprise people how dark and sort of spooky it can get.
People are getting strange powers. I think B, her kind of power, as it were, is definitely her heart and her empathy for other people. She really takes her time to figure out why people are the way they are. And it's always from a place of complete non-judgment. It's just kind of accepting that I'm like this and you're like that, and we come from two very different worlds, but that's okay. That's no one's fault. It's just the cards that we've been dealt with. And I really love that kind of very open-minded aspect of her.
Jessie's a very fragile person, I think, and she confides in her sister for everything. She leans on her for everything. And at the beginning of the series, you find her and she thinks she's ill, or she keeps having these terrifying nightmares that put her in a really dark place, a really scary place for a young girl to be in. And I think Jessie kind of brings that kind of thing of, sometimes it's okay to be different. And as she goes on and progresses through the series, she kind of realizes that her differences could be a strength and that she can use these things that make her different to kind of help the other guys even, and to kind of step into that role of protector almost, like B. And I think she really looks up to B, and I think that's ultimately who she wants to be and who she aspires to be like.
So Leo, obviously, because he's been kept in his room most of his life, he's had a lot of time to read a lot of books, and his knowledge is definitely, I'd say, his power. He's definitely the sort of the braininess of the group, and like brings that sort of analytical side of things. And once he sort of starts getting involved with the regulars and offering up his sort of knowledge and utilizing that, I think he becomes a real asset to the team and really appreciates the value that he can bring, and experiencing it with them for the first time.
That's the doctor's name.
John
Watson. He knows much more than what he's telling us.
I think he's quite elusive. He's very stoic, and he doesn't give a lot of emotion away. A lot of the time that I was looking at Royce, who plays Watson, his face was very, very, like, not blank. It definitely, things are ticking away there, but I was like, oh, I really can't read you. And I think the relationship between B and Watson is so much fun to play because she's trying to harness that kind of energy as well, and that it's constantly a game of cat and mouse, always trying to one up each other, and they're trying to get the better of each other. And I think he has suffered loss in his life as well, but it contrasts from the way that the group, the gang, deals with it, because they have each other and they can kind of go, oh Jess, I see this in you, let's talk about this. Whereas Watson's quite aloof and kind of by himself, which I think is quite interesting to see how those similarities are dealt with differently just because of who Bea has around her and who Watson maybe doesn't have around him.
Yeah, I think as well, because usually he has his sort of right-hand man of having Sherlock there being brilliant, always solving the mysteries, but Sherlock is really not in a good place, and he's having to rely on these irregulars probably out of necessity more than anything else, and it's interesting to see that dynamic between everyone.
Normally in like other Sherlock adaptations, you see that Watson is a bit more emotional almost, and Sherlock's generally the one that's a bit more collected and got things together, and he's figuring things out, and Watson's like, well, what's going on? But I think in this version, I think as Thaddea was saying, Royce, who plays Watson, is he's kind of very collected, and he doesn't give anything away, and he's very mysterious, and you kind of get the sense that he might be a bit sinister, or there's something going on there, and it is quite, he's almost a bit imposing and a little bit like intimidating, and I think that's a really cool twist on this kind of Watson.
Someone has opened a rip, the barrier between our world and the next.
What the actual...
I think there's loads. I think there's so many different genres. I'm going to name all of them. I think there's got, the supernatural thing. I think there's also the family orientated, the sibling kind of story. There's also the love story, and there's a romantic story going on as well. There's horror, there's comedy. If you guys want to think, if you think of any more, but
Grief?
We had to have just one. It was, what would you choose as one, Harrison?
I thought the question was list as many genres as you think the show is. But I think that's the great thing about the show is, like, I think it is hard to define it into one genre. I think there's definitely the supernatural sci-fi element, which encapsulates the whole world. But if you look deeper and you watch the show, you see there's so many different themes and genres in it, and you can take anything away from it, which hopefully will appeal to a variety of audiences.